You know, for me, when I come here to share with you, it's always a very emotional experience because I look at all your faces and it brings back so many, many wonderful memories. So I'm grateful to be here with you today. I want to add to the introduction that you gave me, Marty, the thought that I have just accepted a new role. I am the new minister of the church in Reno, Nevada. But I'm happy to say that I'm just the interim minister. It wasn't something that I sought, but it has worked out, and it's a long story. But they're in a transition and needed someone to step in, and so I'm happy I could do that. I had plans to move to Montana, but this has delayed it, and I know it must be a divine appointment, and I look forward to seeing what that all means. Marty led us in our prayer so wonderfully well. We're all constantly being guided, constantly. The only thing that can keep that guidance from coming through in our lives is if we don't believe it. But all we have to do is hit that switch of, I believe, and all the things that happen fall into the perfect sequence for the positive outworking of our lives. Well, I have a lot of notes here, and as usual, I may not get around to them because I had a wonderful experience today, at least it is for me, and I hope I can relate it to you so that it'll have a lasting meaning for you. One of the things that I've been able to do before I've gone back to work is spend a lot of time on my computer exploring the internet and realize what an incredible miracle it is for all of us. Because, as most of you know, I've been interested in quantum physics and consciousness, and so I have followed what our leading physicists have had to say, and today you can go on the internet and actually hear them lecturing where they have lectured around the world. And one of the probably the most leading physicist today is a man by the name of Roger Penrose, Sir Roger Penrose, at Cambridge University in England. And so just this past week, I watched 3 of his hour-long lectures, trying to understand where they are in the field of physics now, especially in quantum physics, and how it relates to consciousness. The one overwhelming consensus that is happening in quantum physics and the leaders in it today is an agreement that the most important thing for them to understand going forward is, what is consciousness? What is this thing called consciousness? You and I can sort of cover it easily by saying, well, it's a gathering of everything that's going on inside of me and my thoughts, my feelings, my responses. That's consciousness. But of course, that isn't enough for scientists who want to be able to pin it down and put it in the laboratory and check it out. But they know now that, and this is, by the way, what Penrose had to say as soon as he wound up this last lecture that I was listening to. He said, it's all about consciousness now. Everything is about, from their standpoint, is understanding consciousness. And he has quite a reputation because he has been trying to connect consciousness to quantum physics. Now, as metaphysicians, the first time the quantum physicists came along, we grabbed on it and said, that proves that what you look at is what you get. Mind over matter. What did I call this talk I was going to give today? Oh yeah, quantum mechanics is a new age breakthrough. I use that as a title because we are lumped, as a unity group, we're lumped generally into what's called new age. And over, I have seen comments made by local physics professors or others who have said when somebody says, well, what do you think? Does mind really shape your lives? And they say, that's New Age stuff. They're trying to connect quantum physics to it. And they dismiss it. But the truth is that if you know what the great thinkers in quantum physics feel, they have clearly joined our ranks in recognizing that the bottom line insight for all of us is consciousness. I listen to these quantum physicists and I end up feeling sorry for them. And I'm not trying to be smart or cute. I feel sorry for them because they're locked into a perceptive that has, before they can really believe something, they got to demonstrate it somehow physically, and they're never going to be able to do that. Because we in metaphysics, and I should interject and say, we in unity, the more I have spent hours and hours listening to all of this and thinking and meditating, I realize Charles and Myrtle Fillmore gave us an overall philosophy that is the greatest gathering of understanding we could possibly have. For instance, in unity, we say we live and move and have our being in God mind. That's why we have consciousness. We live in mind. That's all there is. Well, now again, our physicists see which one it was. But possibly Max Planck, who is considered really the father of physics, has said that there is only one mind. And Schrodinger, who's also considered one of the fathers of quantum physics, has said the same thing. There's only one mind. Good. We seem to be on the same street with them, but they can't go anywhere else with that except to say there's only one mind. But we have a name for it, and that is God. We live and move and have our being in God mind. So I was meditating this morning, and I was thinking, but how do you help people? How would I help my physicist friends to possibly relate to that we live and move and have our being in God mind? And as I was saying that, I suddenly heard this word, and that is, my idea seems to have a mind of its own. Have you ever heard that, or have you ever said that to anybody? I had an idea, and now you know, the idea has me. How many of you have said that? How many of you can relate to that? I suggest to you that for me it was an aha experience, because I've never been able to say, how can you help somebody to know what it's like to be in the mind of God? Well, if you can experience it for having had an idea in your life and then think, wow, that idea has taken over. It's in me, it's speaking to me, and it's like it has a life of its own. That's you. That's me. I am an idea in the mind of God, and I have a life of my own, just the way God intended it to be. I don't know, as I say, I went, whoa. I was staying at Jack Benson's house, and couldn't you feel the house light up when that came through me? I thought, wow, my idea has a mind of its own. I hear it speaking to me. And so we are an idea in the mind of God. The gift that unity has given us and the Fillmores have given us, not only have they given us that realization, but I think Charles in particular, gave us something that's very important for us to understand. And those of you who've been with me in the past know that I've always leaned this way of understanding that to understand how this idea in the mind of God is working, you've got to understand how mind itself works. How have you been created to be about the business of doing our own thing? And the answer to that is that we are made in the incredible way of having 12 ways in which we can use our minds. The 12 faculties. This is what I have said about unity. I don't know of anyone who has captured that thought in the metaphysical movement as perfectly as we have in unity. And until you have grasped the fact that every time you go to think, you are being moved or are moving 12 ways in which your mind can work. Most of the time it's all happening very unconsciously. But there are other times when you understand how these 12 movements of mind or 12 faculties of mind work, you can realize in certain areas where you're not working them right. Now, if you don't know that, then you just think, I'm an idea in the mind of God. What I think is happening. Yeah, but what are you thinking and how are you thinking it? That's what's important. For instance, it's wonderful to think, I am prosperous. I'm prosperous. But how are you imagining that you're prosperous? Because your faculty of mind imagination, as I think our good leader Marty said this morning, is all important because it's the other half of the manifesting activity of mind. What you believe, faith, is basic. That's what's shaping and molding your life. But how you imagine it going to come out is of equal importance. And that would be true of all the way through the faculties. Now I'm going to turn to my notes now. I mean, this other thing just happened this morning, but now we're going to get to the nitty-gritty. I want to talk to you about the three men who gave us quantum physics in the beginning: Max Planck, Erwin Schrodinger, and Werner Heisenberg. And the reason I want to do this is to realize that most of the world of science is just involved in the fact that they discovered these things, but they have no idea what happened to these guys that did this. After they thought about this breakthrough of consciousness, what happened to them individually in terms of their feeling what life is all about? So let's look at some of the things they said that they felt after this had all happened. And these are all legitimate sayings. I say that only because some of the things that you read, Einstein said he never said, but somebody said he could have said it, and so they print it. But these are all legitimately these things I will share with you now. Max Planck said, "As a man who has devoted his whole life to the most clear-headed science, to the study of matter, I can tell you as a result of my research about atoms this much. All matter originates and exists only by virtue of a force which brings the particle of an atom to vibration and holds this most minute solar system of the atom together. We must assume behind this force the existence of a conscious and intelligent mind. This mind is the matrix of all matter." There's no other way to interpret that than what unity's basic principles are. He said, I regard consciousness as fundamental. I regard matter as a derivative from consciousness. We cannot get behind consciousness. Everything we talk about, everything that we regard as existing postulates consciousness. Wow. This guy, Max Planck Institute in Germany, is considered one of the centers of intelligent, brilliant research. And this is what this man felt, who started that whole thing. It's all about consciousness. He said, there can never be any real opposition between religion and science, for the one is the complement of the other. Every serious and reflective person realizes, I think, that the religious element in his nature must be recognized and cultivated if all the powers of the human soul are to act together in perfect balance and harmony. And I love, he added, he said, indeed, it's not by accident that the greatest thinkers of all were deeply religious souls. And then Planck said something else that is so significant. He said, science progresses one funeral at a time. And of course, that's the story of evolution, you know. But that's what we're witnessing happening, and fortunately science is going to have more funerals. And I knew what you were doing, but it's hard to ignore you. Now let's see, where was I? Thank you. One of the people that I've enjoyed so much on the internet is Wayne Dyer. And some of you have known Wayne Dyer in the past. As you know, he passed at 75. And he almost passed several years before that. But then he overcame leukemia and went on, and then he had this sudden heart attack. And I was thinking, why did Wayne leave? He was such a great guy. You know, we had him come to our church once, and we had an amazingly poor turnout. And they had supposed to have had a front woman who came to promote advertising in the community, and I had felt she didn't do beans. And so when Wayne was there and had this turnout, I was embarrassed by it, so I fell into a negative trap, and I said to him, you know, I'm sorry, but I don't think your person did their job at all. And he said, well, how much does this all cost you? And anyway, I forget, I gave him a figure. I got a check for him for the exact amount. It was a part of his tithe later. Anyway, he was a great guy. Great guy. So anyway, when I was appreciating the fact that he passed at 75, which I consider very young, I thought, why did he leave so young? And the thought that came, right or not, I thought, I think he left because he was as discouraged as I get at times when I think, this is so obvious. What unity teaches is so obvious. And he basically taught what not the 12 powers, which is very significant, but he didn't teach that. But he taught mind over matter over and over, and did it in beautiful and wonderful ways. And I think he reached a point where he said, I can't do anything more. This world isn't going to come alive to this. And I feel that frustration too. I think, you know, I spent most of my life doing this, and I'll be tootled on one of these days, and the world's still going on, and in quotes, we're in a mess. Why don't they get it? And of course, when I get my head on right and everything, I realize they don't get it because everything takes time. It's like Planck said, science changes one funeral at a time. We've got to be patient. We are evolving to when the world will be able to accept this. So, let me give you some words from another wonderful man. There are three guys who are credited with being the fathers of quantum physics. One of them is Erwin Schrodinger. And he said, "The task is not to see what has never been seen before, but to think what has never been thought before about what you see every day. Multiplicity is only apparent in truth. There is only one mind." Wow. That doesn't directly have much to do with a big discovery of quantum physics, but this is what quantum physics meant to him as he meditated on it. There's only one mind. Quantum physics thus reveals a basic oneness of the universe. Everything is one. The total number of minds in the universe is one. There is no kind of framework within which we can find consciousness in the plural. This is simply something we construct because of the temporal plurality of individuals, but it's a false construction. We're all one. The only solution to this conflict, insofar as any is available to us, lies in the ancient wisdom of the Upanishads. He's the second of the three fathers of quantum physics who have affirmed their support of the Upanishads. And you all know what the Upanishads teach, don't you? No, I don't either. No. I do now, and I'm about to tell you. Again, in that marvelous computer world that we have access to, I researched what I've never done before. I've just read parts of the Upanishads. And so I looked up what have the experts who spent their lives, and professors, said, what is the Upanishads? What made two of the founders of quantum physics affirm their oneness with the Upanishads? The Upanishads, according to the experts, one said this literally this way. He said, it's just like the New Testament version of the Bible. The Upanishad teaches that the kingdom of heaven is within you. It's consciousness again. The kingdom of heaven, the potential for all good is within you. Why? Because consciousness is dominant. What you think within yourself is what you have. Okay, let me just give you a couple more thoughts here, and then we'll wind this up. This is Heisenberg, and I love this, that I think you will too. He said it was about 3 o'clock at night when the final result of the calculation, which gave birth to quantum mechanics, lay before me. At first, I was deeply shaken. I was so excited that I could not think or sleep, so I left the house and awaited the sunrise on top of a rock. I love that because it made one of the founders of quantum physics so real. You can imagine his excitement. He said, wow, what I have discovered. He said, the atoms of elementary particles themselves are not real. They form a world of potentialities or possibilities, of potentials or possibilities rather than one of things or facts. So, in winding this up, I would like to say that you know everything that these great souls that are in the history books, you know all this now. You are a Unity student. And there is no better, and I say this in that I have opened myself to reading everybody's view as much as I could of different philosophies and all, and I've never found anything that overall encompassed an understanding of consciousness and its impact on our life and the world as much as Unity or the Fillmores have put it together for us. So I say that to a Uni student, you and I have a job to do, and that is to live the truth we know. And this is what I struggle with. I don't, it's just easier some way to do the ways of the world, isn't it? You know, they don't ask me to speak here very often because it's hard to shut up, but me to shut up, but I was going to say, I'm prone to high blood pressure because my mother had it and made her transition as a result of that. And so my blood pressure was running real high, especially when I was taking care of Dorothy in the last years of her life. And so I went to a doctor. And he gave me a pill for high blood pressure. And it sort of brought it down. But that bothered me ever since I did that. And so I talked to God about it, and lo and behold, now don't all rush out of here and go buy this, but I heard that something that really helps that is beet powder. Beet powder. So I went out and bought some beet powder. The last time I went to my doctor, he said, what's happened? I was below norm. And I had already cut the pills he gave me in half. He said, you cut them in half? I said, oh yeah. Anyway, my point is, I'm working with it to be totally free because I have the power within me. And so the world isn't going to change until we change it, and begins right where we are. So having shared all this about these wise men and their affirmation of the truth you and I believe is true. And so now I ask you to join me in trying to live the truth we know. Let's close our eyes and take this moment to just give thanks. And Marty led us so well in the wonder of the way we are fashioned to live the lives we long to live. Lives that are healthy, lives that are harmonious, lives that are prosperous, lives that are filled with love and goodness. No blessed presence, we give thanks for the wonder of being within your heart and mind. We give thanks for the good that you long for us each to accept. And we give thanks for this in the name of our wayshore, Jesus Christ. Amen.